Yes, you're on.
Am I on?
Yes.
Welcome tonight for our final meeting. Have you enjoyed the meetings?
Oh, yeah.
Have you learned new things?
Yes.
Great. Do you know something? My whole object or my whole passion with this is sharing this with people, but especially trying to get people onto the way where they're going to they're going to be able to do it themselves in their own home, where you're not reliant on going to a health food shop or herbalist or wherever, that you can do it yourself. You can regain your own health by doing it yourself. And it needs to be inexpensive. My belief is God's remedies are inexpensive. He doesn't want, because we're going to be helping so many people. We won't have the finances to go out and buy something that's going to cost us so much. And I understand there are times when you do need things. I understand that. But as a rule, I tend to always veer to those things that are inexpensive. Now, I have probably a little bit of a passion with getting the nutrition into your body. I believe mostly during this type of society we're living in, most people are exposed to so many toxins. First of all, I should just back up a little bit, because I believe if you're exposed to toxins, the first thing you need to do is detox. You need to detoxify your body, and I'm going to suggest a juice cleanse. I think that you probably could do a juice cleanse, and you just pick how long you could do a juice cleanse for. If you could only do a juice cleanse for 1 day, do it for 1 day. If you can do it for 2 days, do it for 2 days. If you can do it for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, do it. Okay? But start somewhere. And my suggestion is juice cleanses, and what I do when we do our own juice cleanse, we have juices. Just have a glass of juice every 2 hours at 8, 10, 12, 2, 4, and generally you could have one at 6, or you can make vegetable broth. It's just broth. That is excellent. And you don't get hungry on that. You can keep going on that. We often add barley green into ours too, which is it's a green powdered supplement that you can buy, which is just powdered barley leaf, the leaf as it's been powdered. So we do that. And I think that's going to, plus you need to drink water during that time, but that's going to give your body a chance to restore and heal. And as I said, if you've only got 1 day, just do 1 day. Ideally, it would be great if you could do it 3, 4, 7 days, or up to 7 days. But that particular cleanse, you can keep going as long as you wanted to. Because the more you're going to do it, the more you're going to cleanse. But along with that, I would start utilizing our excretory systems, not just, you've got your bowels, and you make sure your bowels are open and you're drinking lots of water, but start utilizing your skin to get rid of toxins. And I believe a great way to do that is through baths. Detox baths. And when you're doing this, you probably need a detox bath every day. Plus, you could also do steam saunas or ideally infrared saunas, but infrared saunas are a lot dearer. But you could even do a steam sauna, and you could even do it in your own home if you didn't have the facilities. So you can do all those things, but you need to get the toxins out. And can I speak up a little bit? I don't know if the microphone's... It's working. It's working. Can everyone hear? Okay, you're speaking loud, I'm speaking loud. I'm just speaking my normal voice. Okay, now, so, as I said, we need to detox. Get rid of all those toxins. And this is your mission in life. And I think there's a spiritual parallel here too. You stop and think of in your spiritual life, It's like getting rid of sin out of your life. We have to do this constantly, and it's going to be all the time, because through the day you're going to be exposed to toxins all the time through the day. We have to really consciously go out to get rid and detox from these toxins. But once you've detoxed with those ways, then you have to start putting the nutrition in. Obviously, you need to have good nutrition, and I believe in a whole food plant-based diet, good nutrition, but some people's digestion's a little bit out. They need to really work at restoring their digestion. That's something else. We shared that a few nights ago. Remember, the way to heal your digestion is slippery elm is excellent for healing digestion. Drinking slippery elm juice, also aloe vera, they are excellent. Learn to take aloe vera. I have got loads of, if you've seen the aloe vera I'm growing in my home, it's there, and I'm fortunate I've got a very, very cooperative husband, because he just sees that and he says, yes, this is fine. I've got a huge pot of aloe vera. And I have got comfrey. I've got all these things. Now, what I'm going to share with you tonight is I believe so many people can get minerals from their garden, and we're talking about primarily from their weeds in their garden. Now, when you're looking at minerals, if you just eat only vegetables only, you are only getting minerals in the top part of the root system. You know, you stop and think, how deep are vegetable roots? You know, maybe they go down this deep. I can't tell you exactly. Some would go down deeper. But did you know I believe I have been told that there are 7 different layers. But did you know in the root system, so you need perennials that go down deeper. And if you eat the leaves of a perennial, you're getting different trace minerals than if you have just of your vegetables. So if you're having leaves from way down deep in the ground, did you know alfalfa is supposed to go down, they found it down 120 feet. Now can you imagine, and the Arabs say that alfalfa is the king of the herb. Why? Because can you see that it's bringing up those trace minerals from right down deep in the earth? And we have the different layers of the herbs. Some you will have. We eat all sorts of things as I'm going through, and I'll share with what we go through when I'm talking tonight about walking through our garden using green plants. So this is what I'm going to start off. Now, just before I start, I want to just share with you some things that might interest you. Now, did you know, and it's a real clue, God has placed in plants and in vegetables, in a lot of his nature, exactly what it's going to be used for. So you stop and think, a carrot, what does it look like when you slice it across? It looks like the human eye. And what are carrots good for? Your eyesight. Grapes, they hang in a cluster that has the shape of the heart and like a blood cell. Grapes are good for blood. A walnut looks like a little brain. What are walnuts good for? Your brain. Walnuts are superb brain food. So when I'm talking about these, you need a few walnuts every day. And a lot of the other things that we're talking about here. Oranges, grapefruit, and other citrus fruits are like the mammary glands of the female and actually assist in the health of the breasts and the movement of lymph in and out of the breasts. Celery, bok choy, rhubarb, and many more look just like bones. And what are they used for? They're bones, to strengthen the bones. Avocados, eggplant, and pears target the health and function of the womb and cervix of the female. Figs are full of seeds and hanging twos when they grow. Figs increase the mobility of male sperm and increase the numbers of sperm as well as to overcome male sterility. A tomato has 4 chambers and is red, The heart has 4 chambers and is red. Tomatoes are loaded with lycopene and are indeed pure heart and blood food. Olives assist the health and function of the ovaries. And guess what? They look like ovaries. Sweet potatoes look like the pancreas and actually balance the glycemic index of diabetics. Kidney beans actually heal and maintain the kidney function. And onions look like the body's cells. They help clear waste materials from the body's cells. They even produce tears which wash the epithelial layers of the eyes. A working companion, garlic, also helps eliminate wastes. So here we are. We're going to talk tonight. Now, as I said, we're going to collect and use wild, edible, green weeds and plants. Now, there are lots and lots, but these are the specific ones tonight that are in my garden. That's why I'm going to share them with you. Our garden. True. Our garden. I like that, Peter. Yes, our garden. Now, there's one thing I want to state at here. If you choose to want to use herbs and you'd like to introduce them into your own diet or into your own regime, you must know what you are eating or you are taking. You must know. Don't guess. I know some people who got very, very sick when they thought they took dandelion and they didn't. You must know what your herbs are. If you choose to do it, you need to become educated. And if you only know 3 herbs, just use those 3. Don't just go and just start picking leaves and things off anywhere in your garden, because it is not safe. You must know that they are edible. You cannot just have anything, because some leaves are indeed poisonous. But the ones that I'm going to share with you tonight are safe. So I want to share with you, and we'll go through them. And this is like a walk up my garden. I'm going to ask you, do you know what these are? These are just humble old violets. Okay, now the leaves and flowers and roots are edible. They are good for headaches, digestive organs or disorders, respiratory ailments, cancer, AIDS, arthritis, gum disease. They expel parasites, malignant growth, and they are anti-inflammatory. Now, in the morning, when I'm going to do this, I will get up, I will take my bowl, and I will start picking a few of these leaves. Now, I'm heading up in my garden, I've got a bowl, and I pick probably about, and I don't pick too many, I probably pick maybe 3 or 4 leaves, and maybe if there are flowers there, I'll take the flowers too. The flowers are edible too. So I'll put them in my bowl. Then I walk on a little bit further, and what do I find here? They're strawberries. Now, did you know that the strawberry, look at that, sometimes I've noticed that PowerPoints have moved somehow or other, and don't ask me how that's done that. Okay, the strawberry, they are tonic to the liver and spleen, bladder, blood, as well as infections. And by the way, I am picking the strawberry leaves. Strawberry leaves are an excellent blood cleanser. They will cleanse your blood. They cleanse your stomach. They are an eczema remedy. They are good for diarrhea, dysentery, gout, rheumatism, anemia, sore throats, poor circulation, night sweats, nervousness, weakness, congested mucous membranes, and jaundice. And they can be used in a similar way that raspberry leaf is used for women's problems. So this is just, and as I said, it's not the strawberry I'm using, it's the strawberry leaf. Okay, so the next here is mint. And there are 20 varieties of mint. Well, the one I've got used, and I tell you what, the worst, it comes up everywhere in our garden. If you're growing mint, make sure you confine it to some sort of place, but it doesn't. The birds pick it and they spread it. It just gets spread by our birds. Okay, it relieves colic, indigestion, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle spasms, menstrual cramps, headaches and colds, fever, halitosis, heartburn, sore throats, travel sickness, nervous conditions, insomnia, ulcerative colitis and insomnia. So you can use mint and I just pick a few leaves of mint. And as I've gone along, I'm just picking a few leaves of these. Sometimes only 2, 3 or 4 leaves, however many I feel like I'm going to pick. Then I move along here, and you know what that is? They're figs. Now, I'm not using the fig, and obviously, as you'd realise, these are seasonal. We have just had a season of figs in Australia, so we have the figs. But this is my walk through a particular time of the year when these are in season, because if you don't, sometimes, obviously, your figs lose their leaves, and you've got no leaves on the tree. But these, I pick off some fig leaves. I usually pick off maybe 1 or 2 small leaves. I like the tender young leaves, and I will use them because they are best known for treating diabetes, but there are other uses for fig leaves. The diabetic will need less insulin when on a treatment of using the fig leaf. It's good for diabetes. It lowers blood sugar. It lowers triglycerides, blood pressure, increases bone density, and it's good for bronchitis. So who's telling you you can use your fig leaves as a medicine? Well, I'm just telling you, I'm picking the leaves, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do right at the end of my program. But you can also dry them and use them as a tea. You could use any of these herbs, dry them off, and use them as a tea. Or, as I said, use them green, like I'm going to show you as I'm going to go through. Okay, now do you know what that is? Peach leaves. You're right. We've got a peach tree at home. And did you know peach leaves are very good medicine? They're good for nerves. They are a laxative. Whooping cough, dyspepsia, stomach troubles, jaundice, inflammation of the bladder, and will expel worms. Excellent for bladder and uterine troubles such as scalding urine. So, by the way, too, just want to zero in there. Excellent for whooping cough. I just read that. I just want you to take notice of that. So, I pick off some peach leaves, maybe 2, 3 leaves of peach leaves. Then I go along a little bit further, and you may not know what this is, but this is yarrow. And I got it because I planted it in my garden. I've got a lot of herbs growing down the side of my backyard. It breaks fevers by inducing perspiration, simulates circulatory and digestive systems, it removes congestion, it cleans your blood, it eases heavy menstrual bleeding and cramps, and can be used for many other ailments. So that's yarrow. Then I go a little bit further, and this looks similar to it, but it is a little bit different, and it's called fennel. It builds strength and endurance and stimulates the metabolism. It calms nerves, activates the digestive system, and regulates intestinal flora, lowers the blood pressure. The seeds can be used as well, and chew the seeds to depress hunger pangs. So that's the fennel, so I'm getting all this, and I usually just take it and I sort of strip the leaves off because I don't really want too many of the stems, but I take them and I just get some fennel and plus all of these other things. Then there's another one. That is called salad burnet. This stops bleeding internally and externally. It strengthens the heart, the liver, lungs, kidney and nervous system. It purifies the blood, relieves indigestion, has disinfectant and antiseptic properties on sores, wounds, bites, ulcers, sunburn and skin conditions. So I just take a few of those. Then I go on a little bit further, and you should know what this one is.
It looks like a succulent.
Where once you'll see it, you'll think, oh yes, look at it, it's parsley.
I've never seen parsley.
Okay, thank you. It has a high chlorophyll content, helps oxygen metabolism, cleans the blood, dissolves sticky deposits in the veins, maintains elasticity of blood vessels. It helps remove kidney stones, fights gum and mouth infections, and it treats urinary tract infections. So probably some of you have heard before how good it is for urinary tract infections and your kidneys. Okay, then I go a little bit further. Do you know what this is? Yes, it's kale. So kale helps fight diabetes, type 1 and 2. It is an antioxidant. It supports heart health. It reduces risk of stroke. It binds carcinogens. It's good for bone health. It promotes healthy digestion, skin and hair. So I just take off maybe 1 leaf of kale. Then I go on further. These are carrot tops. I've got a load of carrots. I usually grow lots of carrots because I always know we want to have them and we want to do juicing, and I like organic carrots, so I've got my own in the garden. But I'm using the tops of them. I'm not using the root in this particular drink that I'm going to make up, because they are rich in protein, minerals and vitamins, and they have many times more vitamin A than the root and 6 times the vitamin C of the root. A great source of potassium and calcium and rich in vitamin K that is essential to bone health. They can be a little bitter, so use them carefully. You don't want to put too many in. They can also be used for parasites and worms, and chlorophyll is an excellent source of magnesium, promotes healthy blood pressure, strong bones and muscles, and purifies the blood, lymph nodes and adrenal glands. The potassium lowers your blood pressure, supports your metabolism and helps prevent osteoporosis. And they have been noted to deter tumour growth. Okay, so do you know what these are? Yes, you're right. They're beetroot leaves. We call them beetroot. Okay, but they're just the leaves. I'm not taking the roots. I'm not taking the actual beetroot. But the beet greens are compared to spinach, Swiss chard or quinoa, lamb's quarters, and a number of other wild edible greens. They contain antioxidants, vitamin K that clots blood, boosts bone strength, fights Alzheimer's and strengthens immune system, and vitamin A fights night blindness. So can you see how you're getting so much variety in when you're just picking all these leaves? Now, you would probably know what that one is too. Well, it's actually silver beet. You call it Swiss chard, do you? Okay, we call it silver beet. It's high in antioxidants. It slows aging process. It protects heart health, it fights cancer, helps prevent diabetes, maintains bone health, improves digestion, helps maintain healthy brain function, protects eye health, benefits nerve and muscle function. You've probably seen this in your garden.
That's sour grapes or sorrel.
Yes, you're right. That's oxalis. It has a lemony citrus flavour. It is actually quite pleasant to eat. Okay, and you chew it for nausea, and you can eat this. You eat the flowers, or you can eat the leaves. I just take a few of whatever is there, and you can use for tea. Can be used for urinary infection, fever, colds, cleansing blood, gum disease. It reduces swelling and tired feet, but it has oxalic acid in, like your silver beet. So you really don't want to have excess amounts of this, but the amount I'm putting in is now really negligible, right? So you don't really take, because I'm only putting in a few stalks of it, maybe 3 or 4 leaves again. Now the next one is calendula. Glad you got that one. Calendula, and I picked the flower. Calendula flower is an antiviral and anti-inflammatory. It's good for acne. It controls bleeding, menstrual cycles, soothes irritated tissues, rashes, sunburn. It's good for radiation burn, abdominal cramps, constipation, the anti-tumor, duodenal ulcers, and it's used to heal wounds. So you get abundance with calendula, abundant nutrition and minerals with it. Okay. Purslane. Do you know something? Purslane is and you know, at home it just comes up everywhere. And it is such a healthy plant. It is a waxy leaf with brown stems. It has a lemony flavour, and it is the richest source of omega-3 in plants, and it contains vitamin C. It increases mother's milk supply milk in supply in nursing mothers, and it's good for allergies, thyroid, adrenals, pituitary, and entire endocrine system, plus many more. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you see this in your garden, use it. You can even slice a lot of these herbs, and I'm telling you that I'm picking them up, but you could also slice them up and add them to your salad. You know, your salads don't just have to be of salads, you know, lettucey sort of salads from the supermarket or wherever you're getting them from. You can add this. You can have a wild green salad. We've had different classes, and I feed up with a wild green salad to the people. Now, can I tell you, yes, it's not that different, but you need to put a nice dressing on it with nice lemon and salt and garlic, just a touch of oil in there, and that is just divine. People love it. I've had a class, I can still remember one. Do you remember one lady? She was at the class, we were down at Highwood, and she said, "Oh, that was sure cleaned me out." I ended up on the toilet after she hated. And you know, that's good. That is really good. But use your purslane. You remember I said it is the richest source of omega-3 in the plant kingdom. That's why, don't throw it out. And it's got a little waxy leaf with a brown stem. Yes, you're right. It is mullein. You know, years ago we went up to a park, a national park, and we saw all these mullein plants growing there, and we thought, oh, we'd like to take some back. And the ranger was there, and I said, do you mind, we asked him, do you mind if we take a few of these plants back home? And he said, take the lot of them, he said. And so we brought them home, and we introduced them into our garden, and now they come up all over the place. And I'm quite happy. And do you know something? That's only a little plant, but it grows massive. It grows right up there like that, and it's got a stalk up the centre that comes up with the leaves, the flowers on it. And if you pick those flowers when they're in and you soak them in olive oil, those will actually help your hearing. You put drops in your ear and it improves your hearing. So, you know, there's lots of things. So I like this mullein. And it's a very soft, fluffy leaf. And it's quite large. And actually they call it poor man's toilet paper. So, and it is very soft and very nice. So I'll go and pick a leaf of mullein. I'll put it in my bowl. Okay, it has soft, velvety leaves. It's useful for respiratory system. It is valuable painkiller and nervine. It helps calm and relieve irritated nerves. It is the only herb known that has narcotic properties without being poisonous and harmful. It soothes and strengthens bowels and glandular system. And I've often had, I can still remember years ago, when we went to that national park, I picked all these mullein and I brought them home, and I dry all these herbs because I love herbs, and I've got them all dried there, and I had this supply of mullein tea. And I can remember once I found myself, felt that I was getting a little bit of a congestion on the chest, and I just have a drink of mullein tea and it loosens it. It loosens it beautifully. The point of it is, when you're coming down with something and you feel you're getting something, it is really important to get it early. Like if you're coming down with a bladder infection or something, you get it early. Don't wait until it's full blown, because it's harder to cure with your natural remedies. Often you can, but it's much, much easier if you are in early stages of these things. So once you know all these things, you can actually add them to your regime. Okay, you probably don't know what this one is, but it's marjoram. It soothes digestive system. It's good for dyspepsia, colic, gastritis, abdominal cramps, nervous upsets, vomiting and seasickness. It assists sleep. It increases flow of bile. It clears toxins and increases white blood cell count, plus more. There's loads of things. I mean, I've just grabbed some of them and I've just listed some of the things that they're used for. Obviously, for many of them, I can't put everything down. Now, the next one you may not know. I don't know what you call it, but it's really sticky. We call it cleavers. Cleavers. It is also known as goosegrass and sticky weed. And you find it in your garden that it sticks to everything. You pull it around. It is sticky. It is considered one of the best tonics to help drain out the lymphatic system. It stimulates the activity of your lymphatic system and organs so they do their job properly. It helps to cleanse and nourish the blood. It can be used for psoriasis, for rashes, arthritis, urinary stones and infections. So it's great. I put that in. That goes in my bowl. So I'm picking it. I just pick a few leaves. I don't pick too much. Do you know what that one is? I've seen that around here. Yes, it's mallow. We call it marshmallow. And it clears mucus and toxins from the body. It soothes respiratory system, urinary tract infections, intestines and any inflammation. Used for sore throats, coughs, colds, laryngitis, bronchitis, tight chest, sinusitis, emphysema, tonsillitis, asthma, catarrh and whooping cough, plus loads more. It's a very good one for your colds and coughs. And often if you buy a herbal preparation that's in the health food shop, you'll find it'll have mallow in it. So it's excellent. I just go and I pick a couple of leaves of this. And I have had to train my husband. My husband is a very neat person. And he's very tidy and very neat. And for him to have plants like this in his garden, he's learnt now and he lets them there. But at first he liked to pick out all the weeds. And now he's happy to leave the weeds in there. He says, I've got it all wrong. Why?
We've got them growing not in my garden. We've got special beds for them.
Yes, that's true. We've got them. Yes, we've got special beds for our herbs. Yeah, he doesn't like them in amongst the vegetables and all that sort of thing. He's a very neat person. And so, this is just the way it goes. Our next one is dandelion. Now, I've cut it across. Now, what I want you to notice, take notice of how dandelion grows, because some people don't know. Dandelion grows, and can you see the flower or the stalk comes out of the centre of the rosette, and it comes up, and there is one flower on one stalk. And if you cut that stalk in half and you look through it, is hollow, like a straw. That is dandelion. And so that is true dandelion, which I've got growing there. But did you know when I was a child, I was told that this one on the left was dandelion. And we call that capeweed. The one on the bottom, I was also, looks, when it comes in and it's very tiny, the one down the bottom, it looks also very much like dandelion, and it's called cat's ear. And that grows up eventually like that other one on the side. Can you see that there is all these different little branches coming off the original stem? There's not just one stem and a flower. There is one stem and quite a lot of flowers. Now that is not dandelion. But it does look like it at certain stages in its growth. So you need to be careful. And I've just added that there to make sure that you know. Dandelion is a safe plant diuretic. It alkalizes the body. It reduces excess acidity. The bitter, and it is a very bitter herb. And you know something? It's good to have bitter herbs because it stimulates digestion. It assists the liver, the spleen, the gall, the pancreas function and makes it easier to digest fats and oils. It stimulates mucous membranes, soothes digestive tract, absorbs toxins from the bowel and helps friendly flora to thrive and inhibit unfriendly bacteria. It relieves diabetes, dissolves gallstones plus more. I had one lady came to my class and she said to me, did you know that she grew dandelion in her garden? And she said she used it, and with dandelion you can also use the root. I picked the leaves here for my green drink, but the root is an excellent, and a lot of these you can use the roots too. But I don't dig them up in the garden, but many of them, like parsley root, is very good for you. And now this is dandelion root. Dandelion root tea, you can often get that from the health food shop, and you can make, or dandelion coffee. That is an excellent drink for you to drink because it is quite bitter and it will stimulate your body to do what it should be doing, because we have eaten so much, most people have eaten so many sweet things their whole life, they just shudder when it comes to eating bitter things. But most cultures in the world know the value of having bitter in their diet. We need bitter. And I believe God has talked about, you stop and think, when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, what did they have to have? Bitter herbs. What do bitter herbs do? They cleanse the liver. You must realize if you want your liver cleansed, you have to get onto dandelion tea. And even if you just don't do everything that I'm telling you, if you start to go to the health food shop and you've got a beautiful lot of herbal teas here in these shops very close by. I've seen some down in the Clark's, and I also saw someone just down in this other one down here, the market. Lovely lot of herbs. Get in there, start educating yourself, and have these drinks. This is just, and I don't like some of these drinks, and can I tell you, I don't care whether you like them or not. If they're good for you, just drink it and get over it and drink it. That's my philosophy. I mean, if we're just saying, oh, I don't like it, ew, that tastes terrible, I can guarantee you, they will all taste terrible. My philosophy is to allow them to be probably about lukewarm, and then I just drink it down quite easily. I don't readily want to enjoy this drink. But something, once it's down, it's in your stomach, it's in your digestion, it's in your body. Once it's gone down there, you're not saying, oh, isn't it terrible? It's gone, it's in your body, and it's doing its work. So it's only a very short time when it's going through where you're tasting it. But please, just get over it and just drink it. My father taught me that. He said garlic's good for you, just have it. He even got to the stage where Mum had died, and he was a widower for, I think, 12 years. And he got to the stage, he liked his garlic so much, he even used to put it in his porridge. He put 4 cloves of garlic in his porridge. Of course, you couldn't get near him. But he really loved all this stuff. Well, I was starting to learn all this when I was telling him about these things. He would just do everything I would say. Okay, so just remember, get onto dandelion. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you not only don't have to have dandelion, you could go through, and there are many of the teas that I'm talking about. You can go to a health food shop and you can buy them already dried. So incorporate those into your lifestyle. Every day have a few teas. And we're not talking about black, tea. This is good for you, these type of teas. Okay, the next thing. Do you know what that is? Yes, you're right. We call it stinging nettle. Okay, now it's interesting because the sting is an effective remedy for pain relief. If you get yourself stung with stinging nettle, all you've got to do is crush the leaves up and you put them on your sting, and negate the sting. And another thing they do, which I'll just think it creates warmth. And I know in certain countries in the world where stinging nettles grow, they will get the stinging nettles and they will bash it against, or they slap it up against your arthritic joint. And do you know what? People swear by it. They say that really cures arthritis.
It makes cortisone.
Yes, does it? Makes cortisone. It is such an excellent thing. We need to be used. See, these are the things that are out there. Now, if somebody comes to me and they say, what do I do for arthritis? Well, I mean, I've forgotten about this when I spoke to you, but I'm just, as I'm thinking about it as it now, because it's good for arthritis, it's good for gout, lumbago, paralysis, kidneys, anemia, adrenals, liver, thyroid, prostate problems, and candida. So you can take the nettle as a tea. You can go to the health food shop and you can buy stinging nettle tea or nettle tea. Excellent. It is so good for men. I tell you what, it's the herb that most men need to have, especially as you're getting older. If you're getting older, it is excellent for prostate problems. Excellent. You could also combine it with saw palmetto, which is another herb, and you take that and you use that for prostate. So, once you realize, and nettle is the absolute wonders for women who are low in iron. It will build your iron up. So if you have heavy menstruation and you need to get your iron up quickly, use nettle. It's the best blood cleansing and blood building herb known. That's why it's so good. It's one of the richest source of chlorophyll in the plant kingdom, and it can be used for food. I can remember my mother-in-law was telling me she was living in Germany during the Second World War, and she said that they lived on stinging nettles, and you often find a lot of people did because they couldn't buy food. This was their only source of green. And how do you get rid of the stings out of stinging nettle? Because I tell you what, I go to pick that, and it's very, I've got to be very careful that I don't get stung. Well, what you do is you just take it in, and if you want to eat it in a salad, what you take it in, you put it on a breadboard, and you have a rolling pin, and you just roll over it, and it's fine. You just lose all the stings. They go out. And so then you can put it, you can slice it up and add it into your salad.
It's extremely high in protein.
It's extremely high in protein.
In dry form, it's 39%.
Yes, so we got in dry form it is 39%. So it is an excellent, excellent herb that you need to get into your diet. So, and obviously stinging nettles only come up certain times of the year. You don't have them all the year through. But you need to realize that they can be utilized and added to your food. And you're getting so many. And not only that, you don't plant them. There's just a tiny weeny little seed that somehow or other, it just comes. Where did the little seed come? It is obviously was seeded from last year. And there's so much power in that seed, and it grows its roots down so deep. And this is what you have to look for. Now, this is one of my favourite herbs, and it's plantain. It is such an... Actually, it's excellent for using in poultices too, but I'll just touch on that here. Okay, I'll go through this here, and I'll talk about the poultices in a minute. It's used for all bleeding. Okay, did you know that if you were out and if you had problems with... you got cut or something like that, when you're out, you've got nothing to put on your cut, you want to stop it bleeding, you just crush up plantain and you put the juice on it and it will stop the bleeding. It has allantoin, which helps cells knit back together and stimulates growth and healing. It is anti-inflammatory. It is used for arthritis, high blood pressure and cholesterol, candida, stomach upsets, ulcers, psoriasis, diarrhea, ringworm, bites, addictions, bedwetting and bladder problems, blood poisoning, constipation, herpes. It's an excellent blood cleanser and it helps malignant growths, cancer, thrombosis, liver, spleen, pain, hemorrhoids, lumbago, menopause, boils, tones, uterine muscles, cramps, fever. It's good for fevers, varicose veins, diabetes, irritable bowel syndrome, diverticulitis, hepatitis, lymph glands, and virility. Not much that it's not good for, is it? It is, and as I said, if you go, there was a friend of ours who was telling us that he heard about this because his wife used to come to classes, and he's a good friend of ours, and he said one day he decided, he didn't decide to do it, but he actually accidentally caught his thumb in his car door. He said he had to reach in from the other side and unlock it to open it up. He said it was that bad. And he said it was all bent out of shape, and he'd heard about plantain. So he went over, picked some leaves in his garden, and you chew them. So you release the cells, the juice in them. And he put them on there, and he said it took the pain away. Now, I'm not saying it's going to do it for everyone. He assured me it did, but I tell you what, when you put your finger or your thumb in a door, it's pretty painful, isn't it? And even if it lessens the pain a little bit, I'm happy, okay? But that's something that you can use. It is such a good blood cleanser. I use it often. It's so... And what I did when I first got interested in these herbs, I actually cultivated them. I got plants from where I saw them and I put them in the garden, and now they're there all the time. You don't have to replant a lot of these things. It is a perennial. It is just there all the time. And what happens is those roots are going really deep, deep into the soil. They're bringing up trace minerals from right down deep. So you're getting different minerals than you would if you were just eating, as I said before, just vegetables. So, plantain. And there is a broadleaf variety and a narrowleaf variety. And for what I've said, they're both good. It really doesn't matter which one you've got. This one particular one is a narrow leaf. The broadleaf is fatter than that, but it is still pretty fat. And it's got those elongated long ribs on it. Now this is what you get. This is when the plantain will go to seed. You will get long stalks and they will have seed heads on them. They are actually from the same family plant that you get psyllium from. And so what I do is I actually go with my fingers and I run up along all those stalks, and I get that psyllium because that goes in things too. You can use and add it to food. It is very healthy to add for your food. And sometimes I will just come off and I'll just cut off a stem, just near underneath the seed part of it, and I'll put that in my bowl too. It doesn't come all the time of the year. That only just goes to seed at a specific time of the year. But I use it. So that's psyllium. Plantain heads. Now, I don't know if you know this one.
Horseradish.
No, it looks like horseradish, but it's actually yellow dock.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now yellow dock is used for jaundice, liver congestion, gallbladder complaints, scurvy, inflamed glands, thins and purifies the blood. As a tonic, the dock is very high in iron. It is the highest source of iron in the plant kingdom. It removes excess fluid from the body, indigestion, fatigue, biliousness, itchy skin. It's excellent for lymphatic system and for treating cancers. It is so good. Now, when I first heard all about this, I'll tell you, Peter knows the story I'm going to tell. We decided we'd go out and we would dig up some yellow dock. Well, did you know that yellow dock root is massive? It's like a gigantic carrot. It's huge. And so we dug it up. Peter got the spade and we went out and we brought it home and we washed it off and we said, well, what do we do with it now? And we didn't know how to cut it up because we needed to dry it off. So Peter got the axe out and he chopped it up in little bits. I dried it out and I had it at home for probably a year or so. And I decided, what had happened is I was going through the change of life and I had a heavy bleed really heavy bleed. And I had to go to the doctor, and I went to the doctor, and he said to me, from the Friday to it was Good Friday, actually in Australia we have the Friday of Easter as a public holiday and the Monday after Easter as a public holiday. So it was the Thursday before Easter. It was like the anniversary of today. It was the Thursday before Easter, and he said if I don't get my iron levels up when he comes on Tuesday, I had to have a blood transfusion. And so I went home and I got this yellow dock out because I'd heard that this is the richest source of iron in the plant kingdom. And I looked at these roots, and I got my large pot up, and I put the whole lot of the roots in there, and I started simmering them. I looked at them, and you know what? The tea, which I was drinking, almost looked black. It almost was black. Anyhow, I'd simmered it up, and I thought, well, look, I don't want to have a blood transfusion. I also took organic grape juice, which builds up your blood. You know, grape juice will build up your blood. Plus, I had liquid chlorophyll, which I bought from the health food shop, because I didn't do all these leaves at that stage. This was earlier on. So I used liquid chlorophyll, and I drank a bottle of liquid chlorophyll over that weekend. And I drank this herbal tea, and I swear I was going to finish it. I had this huge pot, and it was shocking. It really tasted shocking. But I have learned I've got to practice what I preach. So I drank it, and I went to the doctor on the Tuesday morning. Yeah. I went to the doctor on the Tuesday morning, and he did a blood test, and he says, "How did you get your iron levels up so fast?" And I just said to him, I took a lot of chlorophyll. And I really swear to you that I would say, look, that doctor looked at me, and he sort of, even chlorophyll, what's chlorophyll? It was like that. He didn't say it, but that's the thought that I was getting as he was talking. And he did not say a word. And he says, and then he just went on, and he says, "You're fine, you don't need to have a blood transfusion." And it just showed me, because my blood was just so borderline transfusion. And I didn't want to have it, and it actually got it. Look, I've forgotten the numbers now, but we have different sort of measurements anyhow in Australia, you do. But it just skyrocketed, and he could not believe that I had got it up so high. And I just know, and I value this yellow dock. I don't always, because it's the root that's valuable, but I also use the leaves as well. So I put my leaves in my green drink, but that root is especially good. And as I said, remember I said that you can use your root for a lot of the particular problems that you have. Now this one here is, you should know that one, Doug.
Yes, that's
Sheep sorrel. Okay, it cleanses blood. It expels worms, it's warming to the heart, it's rich in vitamin C. It reduces swelling or the inflammation of the nasal passages for sinusitis and bronchitis, and it is an ingredient in Essiac tea, which is a cancer remedy. So you really need to know your herbs, and this is excellent. But the only problem is, Peter is saying it just comes up everywhere. Once we introduced it to our garden, it just comes up anywhere and everywhere all over the garden. So it just keeps him busy, you see. Now this is part of our comfrey patch. Now take a good look at this, because I'm going to talk about this in my practical tonight. Have a good look at this. The leaves have got a slight hairy feel to it. That is comfrey. Now, it's seasonal. It will die off in the summer, die off in the winter, I beg your pardon. It only grows in the summer. And in the winter, you can use the roots. And the roots are incredibly powerful, just as powerful as the leaves. But I don't use the roots in my drink. I use the leaves. And you can buy comfrey, and you can buy comfrey tea. Okay, here I'm going to talk about that. Thank you, Peter. you assist the body to heal any part that has been torn or broken, and it is called knit bone. I'll tell you some stories about that later when I'm going to deal with the second part of our program. It contains allantoin, stimulates rapid growth. It is a blood purifier, bone and flesh builder. I want you to hear that. It stimulates production of cartilage, tendons and muscles. You use it for indigestion, stomach and bowel problems, excessive menstrual flow, fevers, coughs, lung conditions, hemorrhaging, cancer, catarrh, anemia, sinusitis, lupus, lowers blood pressure, hiatus hernia, eases inflammation of the joints and mucous membrane. So you can use it for so many things. And my second last newsletter was on all the benefits of comfrey. So if you have come across that one, it is excellent. Yes, you can make a tea out of it. Yes, you could. But it's quite, as it says there, it's quite mucilaginous. That means it goes slimy. It's quite slimy as you go. You just got to get over these things and just drink it. Doesn't matter what it tastes like, even if it tastes like, it might taste a bit slimy, but that's fine. Once it's down there, it's going to do a lot of healing. But if you had tea, it is actually, and if you dry your leaves off and you make it as tea, it won't be slimy. It'll just be like tea, you know. But you don't use the little leaves, you use the big ones, because the little ones have a pyrrolizing alkaloid in, which actually, when it pokes it through the ground after the winter, it has actually got a chemical in it, a plant chemical in it, that stops all animals coming and eating it. So once it's grown into the full leaf, it's fine. Now people will tell you, you've got to be careful not to eat too much comfrey. Been a lot of scare tactics of that. But you know something, if you just eat 1 or 2 leaves a day, it's not going to hurt you. And it's really interesting because when we were down at Escondido, there was a lady there who said how she has used comfrey practically since she's been a child, and her health is so strong. So, use comfrey. And it's very good for mucous membranes. I'll talk more about that later. Okay, now this is aloe vera. Okay, now there's 3 main types of aloe vera. One is perii, which is a little baby one, which is not ultra beneficial for you as medicine. But this is called candelabra, and you can see that it comes up, and you'll find it comes up and it grows out like a candelabra. Now the other one that is good for you is a big one called barbadensis, and that grows out from the bottom, goes out. So the candelabra, if you remember that one, goes out as it goes up, and the one goes down this one grows out from the rosette down the bottom, and it's quite fat. Both of those are great to use. You can't, look, it is one of the best herbs that you can introduce into your diet, but it is incredibly bitter. But I've got a couple of books on down in South America how a priest has cured so many people just using aloe vera, cured them of cancer just by using aloe vera. It helps digestion. Remember I said to you before, all your digestive problems, just look, I've got some incredible stories of aloe vera healing people with digestive problems. Acid reflux, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, and ulcers, and it is antiseptic, has healing powers, is anti-inflammatory. It penetrates deeply, and so you can also use it on burns. It stops bleeding. It's good for ulcers. It increases oxygen and blood to the area. It is antibacterial. It's good for cancer, leukemia, HIV. It heals stomach and colon and diabetes and asthma, angina, blood sugar, cholesterol, bladder infection, plus lots more. So there's not too many things that it's not good for. When we take it, it's gel inside the leaf. Aloe vera has gel inside the leaf. Now, if you cut an aloe vera leaf and you set the cut leaf down, it will actually seep out yellowy stuff. Now, that is the bitter stuff. Now, if you don't want the aloe vera drink so bitter, what you just do is you cut your leaf off, you set it in a glass, an empty glass, and allow it to drain for about 2 hours, then you take it out. Now, that, you can use it any way. You can actually fillet it, take off those outer green part, and use the gel in a smoothie. You can chop it up as a leaf with the green outer skin on, and you can put it in water, and it will seep out into the properties, will seep out into the water, and you can drink it. And it tastes shocking. As much as you can get down. Yes, you could have it every day. You could have it. Peter goes through spates of it, and he has this. He faithfully goes out and he chops up his aloe vera and puts it in his. I've got a separate little jug there for these type of things, and we have it, and it's got a little lid on this glass. I like glass. I'm a person. I have all my jugs and that are in glass, and so he's got this little glass jug there, and he's got his aloe vera in it, and he faithfully goes out there. So 1 litre of that he has a day, because he puts a few leaves in there. Sometimes in the next day, he's still got the leaves there. He'll add this water on the same leaves. You can do that for a few times, but after 2 days, you just want to throw the whole lot out. You don't. And especially if it's really hot in the summer, you would have to be more careful. But you can. It's not like you only use it once. You can use it twice. But as I said, it is terrible to drink. But I don't care what it tastes like. If it's going to heal you, my philosophy is we've done, as I said before, we've eaten the sweet things all our life. It's up to us now. We're going to have to take a bit of the bitter stuff to heal us. And there's a spiritual lesson in that too, because God knows that to be healed, we can't have everything going cushy all our life. We're going to have some things that really trials and tests to us. Okay, the next thing is something, I don't know if you know we call it Herb Robert. And it is the supreme therapeutic herb. It makes oxygen available to cells. It's excellent for cancer, stimulates kidneys to reject and eliminate toxins, stimulates electrical impulses to cells, gives energy, builds immune system, is antibiotic, antiviral, antioxidant, builds hemoglobin, mouth ulcers, colitis, chronic fatigue, mends fractures, stops bleeding, plus more. It is one of the best anti-cancer herbs that we have. And I think it's called Robert Geranium or something, or Stinky Bob. Stinky Bob?
It's from the geranium.
Yeah, it's a geranium from the geranium. I think it's called Stinky Bob or Robert Geranium or something like that. But it's from the geranium family. And it grows everywhere. It comes up in cracks, in the cement. And the plants are just so healthy. Sometimes those plants that come up in cracks in cement are so healthy because they've had to go down so deep to get their nutrition. Now this is one I wanted to share with you, and it's called radium weed, and I don't want you to eat it. Now down in the bottom right hand corner you can see I've just cut off a little bit of it, and it actually has white sap in it. And it's called petty spurge. That is what you would use to burn off skin cancers on your face, your hand or whatever. But it will blister. If you got a skin cancer on there and you want to burn your cancers off, you use the sap. And I believe you can use the sap of a number of plants. But if you do, just remember it will actually blister. That's what it does. It makes a blister, and you will have to get a scab, and it will actually heal, and it heals for the cancer right down underneath too. It's just wonderful. But my suggestion is, no, if you decide you've got a skin cancer on your nose or your forehead or something, don't go putting it on there when you've got something coming up that's important and you don't want to have your face looking all out of shape and swollen and messed up. You just remember you have to be careful when you do this. I would suggest try it on your hand or wherever first to make sure that you how long it's going to heal. Sometimes you might have to put it on more than once. Okay, so then I've gone around there, and in my bowl I've got all these bits and pieces of leaves. Now this is what I've got. And then what I do is I just take, and you don't have to do this, sometimes I haven't done this, but I've actually, that's a bit of my peach from my peach tree, which I've frozen, and it's in the freezer. So I put that in my blender, and I put water in, not too much water, and I blend them. And because I've got a very strong blender, it will just blend, and that is my drink, and I drink that as a smoothie. Or I will use more water than that, and then I will blend it, and then I will strain it, and I will get all the fibre out, and I will just drink the green liquid. So I've done it both ways. So if you want the fibre in there, that's good. We have. And so we've often had just the green liquid. So that's the other way to do it. Now recently, like just before Christmas, we bought ourselves another juicer. It's called Juicer. So I can just now, I just throw all my greens in, chop them all up, and I put them in the top of that machine there, and out comes the bottom, comes pure juice. So I put all my leaves in. Now on the left, that is all the leaves that I've collected, that is the juice out of those leaves. So I'm having, it's like a special machine that you can get. It's called an Optimum juicer. I think that you'd even have it over here because it's a all over the world company. And I like it because you know what? Sometimes I think I'm a little bit of a softie for these sort of things because I know how important it is. And this is easy. What I like about it, and I like doing it by, and I've done it by the blender often, because all you've got to do is just wash up a blender. Now this particular juice, you don't have to wash up either. It's just got a little bag that you insert, and you can rinse it out and reuse it if you want to, or you can throw it out. And there's no washing up in that. And I like that idea. Because you know what? One of the worst things about juicing and going on a juice cleanse and juice is cleaning up the juicer. And that really stops you from wanting to do it. That's why I liked doing that one. I mean, in Australia, I think we paid about $600 and something for it. But I actually like it. At first, I felt quite guilty about buying it because I was thinking, oh, you know, this is another gadget I've got. But I tell you what, sometimes you get things and you really use them and they are beneficial to you. And this is like our health insurance. We don't have health insurance. We don't have to have it in Australia because we've got a government one. We're just naturally, everybody, you can by default you can just take the government health insurance, so we don't even have to have any. You can have private health insurance if you want to in Australia, but we don't. So this is our health insurance. And I believe it. Not only that, it's working. Because you know something, I look at around the people who are our age, our friends, not just friends, but they're just our acquaintances, our people there, they're getting so sick. And we've just been so blessed. God has been so good to us. But we've done all these things. So I think it just is a benefit for us. So that is my talk, and I just add to, some people might be in today. If you want to go on my mailing list for my health newsletter, this is it. And if you want to go, look, I've got articles of an iodine, magnesium, borax, herbs, edible weeds, natural remedies, gut health, fermented foods, heavy metals, parasites, fungus, genetically modified foods, gluten, Roundup, laws of health and recipes. Plus, look, I've got loads of things there on that. So, I have just used that over the years, plus I've just I also will just talk about this first. Your physical, emotional, and spiritual healing, which I really, really believe we need to have. All needs to be combined, and that's why on Sabbath afternoon here, Peter in the morning is going to do a service on dead or alive, on the necessity of dying to our own self, and in the afternoon I'm going to talk on healing, how God heals us through the sanctuary service. So, I urge you to come along there. Now this here is my email and my website. You can go onto the website and you'll find those newsletters there. And if you want to contact me, you can just contact me on my email at backtoeden@apt.net.au. Okay, so I'll just leave that up for a little while, and I will head off, and we will go over now. And somebody said they'd like to stand up and stretch. So while I'm getting my stuff there, just feel free to stand up and stretch if you feel like you need to.
You know that yellow duck and sheep sorrel are in the same family.
Yeah, yeah.
You already have it, but if a person wants this, and where do you buy them? They're basically weeds,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So you can't go to a nursery.
You need to ask people who have them in their garden.
Ask me. I have some.
You have some of those?
They're coming up now.
How did you get them?
Do you know lamb's quarters?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not really. We don't
I have
have
some seeds at home from a variety that's made to let go and go and go, and then it gets about this tall.
Okay, I'd be interested if you.
It's from the Chenopodium family, which is goosefoot and
Yeah.
silver beak.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I won't do that because I'm taking in. We've got to declare it at the border and all that sort of thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just put the seeds are like poppy seeds or
Yeah,
small. I'll
yeah.
just put some in an envelope.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to take the tape. She said,
Okay, Harold, do you want to talk about those DVDs too? Okay, we'll
Yes,
go back.
yes.
Get them down into attention.
Yeah.
See, this is what I thought would happen. That's why I don't let
Yes.
them have it. Yeah.
All right, my friends. I think we don't want to overstretch our legs. I want to mention this. I need you to be on your seats at this point and come and get ready for the next meeting.
I'm purposely taking them back, Robin.
And if you are paying attention, just look at me. All
Okay,
right.
you're going to say something.
Yeah,
now.
I'm going to tell you this. Kaye brought several sets of DVDs that she has done. Some had made professionally done, and other ones from camp meetings in New Zealand. And we had put it all together in our computer, and now we're gonna put it on a USB stick. So anyone that is interested in having the USB stick, if you have a computer, you should have a connection. It's going to be $25 each. I'm going to take orders because we are waiting for the order of all the USB sticks, and so they're going to be ready by order.
There is 19 discs that
So,
are going on there. 19
plenty.
discs.
He has much more than what she has said today, and only for $25. So I'm gonna bring 2 blocks of paper, and it's gonna say the USB stick, and I'll make it for you. If you that's our idea. Now, one more thing. For tomorrow. Tomorrow, the meeting is at 7:30. It's like all the Fridays we are used to get it on 7:30. It's going to be only 1 hour, so you can go home and rest and get ready for Sabbath in the morning. And the message is going to be a spiritual message. Right, Brother Peter? What is the title? The wedding garment is absolutely spiritual and mental healing. So you're going to be there. You're going to be here. On Saturday, which is the Sabbath, the church is going to be open at 9 in the morning. And it's going to be a loaded day. And I'll tell you what. Because at 9 o'clock, we're going to open, we're going to have a word of prayer. And we're going to start with the meeting that is how to pray for the sick. So there are specific counsels that we have gotten a spirit of prophecy that are shocking. So you would like to how to pray for the sick, not any prayer. There are counsels and preparation, and not only for the person that prays, but the sick person, and what involves and all of that. So we're going to start at 9 o'clock in the morning. Then we have a special guest from Tonga, from the Pacific. Some of you know David Baipulo. Brother David Baipulo is a tremendous missionary, and he's been all over the world. And I met him in Washington. I went to Dublin in Ireland. He was there. In the UK, he was there. I come here, he's here. He's okay. So after that he's going to take an hour, and for the divine service, Brother Peter is gonna speak on the divine service. What is your subject for Sabbath? Dead or alive? You want to be dead or you want to be alive? Very, this. I love Brother Peter. You know what? He's straightforward. He goes to the point. He's German. I love him. Anyway, and then you all are invited for lunch here. And I may bring some salad with some of these weeds. You don't know. So you better be here. Okay. At 2 o'clock, Sister Kaye is going to wrap up the whole series. She's going to speak here from 2. She's going to end probably 3:15. No later than 3:30. And then I'm going to grab him, and we're going to go to our church in Escondido. We have a nice group there. We're going to be actually in it's called Hampton Inn in San Marcos. It's a beautiful motel. They gave me the best room. I'm so happy. So I think that's all for now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'll tell you more.
Good. Okay, thank you, Brother Harold. Now, I'm going to wind up our program with some more poultices. And I'm going to share with you, first of all, about cabbage poultices. And I said to Harold, do you have any cabbage leaves? And this is what he gave me. Aren't they beautiful? This is exactly what I needed. Now, what do you use cabbage leaves for? Okay, now, what we've talked about, potato poultices will pull out toxins out through your tissues. We've talked about cayenne poultices are heating poultices. Onion and garlic are antibiotic poultices. Now, cabbage poultice pulls out fluid or juices out of your body. You know, if you've got something swollen and you want to get rid of it, it will pull it out. So, it disperses stale blood and poisonous juices from the body. And you can use it on sinus. I'll show you how to use it on the sinus in a minute. Sprains, edema, arthritis, cancer, tumour, cysts, You can use it, and how many women use it on engorged breasts when they've just had a baby, and when their milk comes in? You can use it on broken bones, you can use it on chilblains, you can use it on edema, and you can use it internally. And basically, I'm not talking about using the juice internally, but it's very good for healing your stomach lining, your ulcers and your digestive complaint. So if you have problems with your digestion, you need to get into cabbage juice. Now, the ideal ones to use are these great big leafy green ones. It was interesting when you're doing poultices, and this is what I'm going to share with you when you're doing a poultice. You can use organic poultice. I was talking to a young woman who has worked at a health clinic, and she said that they experimented as poultices by using organic cabbages as versus just shop-bought cabbages. Now, the shop-bought cabbages worked, but the organic worked much better. I would assume that it's going to be the same with almost all your vegetables. If you can get organic, use it. But if you don't, it still will work. This will work. I'll tell you a story. I went to work at Tonga, and actually I was staying with Tavita, David Vaipula and his wife, the people who are coming here tomorrow. And I thought, oh, lovely to catch up with them. But I was staying with them, and we had some health programs over there, and there was a man there who had very swollen legs. Now, in a lot of the island countries, you have a lot of diabetics. Now, as a result of diabetes, the legs can swell up, get a lot of fluid in the legs. And I went there, and this man came to me and says, "What can you do for me?" His legs were huge. He'd been to the hospital, he'd been to his doctor, nobody could help him in Tonga. And so what I did is I said, okay, I will try. And I had a group, because we had a group of Fijian women went over with me. I was doing the lectures. They were teaching the Tongan people how to cook native food, like the Tongans and the Fijians cook. And so they would come home and they were doing all the cooking. And so I had a team. We had a team, probably had about 6, 7 in the team. And I was just up the front doing the lectures. Anyhow, this man came back to the house where we were staying. And I said to her, I said to the ladies, I think we'll do a potato. Got it? Potato. But we'd been to the markets and we'd bought potatoes, and we bought 1 kilo of potatoes. And guess what? It used up all our potatoes, and they were $5 a kilo. And I thought to myself, now this is not going to work too well. I know potato will work, but then I thought I'm going to switch over to cabbage. And I asked him to bring the cabbages himself. And he had to come morning, night, morning, night, morning. It was 2.5 days that we worked on him. And I found those cabbages, like the Chinese cabbages, the ones that don't, the actual drumhead cabbages I don't like as much as the ones that come up there like, they go up and they grow up like that. And I think in Australia we call them Chinese cabbages, but they've got so much juice in them. So what I did is I took the cabbage leaf, and I'll show you how to do it first. I'll tell you the story first. And first of all, I put the potato poultice on. I sent him home. I put the garbage bags over both legs. He went home. And they worked. But next day, and I got down, we washed his legs up and dried them, put a cabbage poultice on. Same thing happened. We did it morning and night, so we practically had the cabbage on all the time. And as he said, in the morning he'd walk. It will pull the juices out of his thing, and it went like, as he was walking, he would go. He's squishing around in the bags, the water. And as it took us 2.5 days, and the swelling went down, and you could pinch the skin around his ankle. I took what I did is his leg, I just put all the cabbage, packed it around the leg. Obviously it wasn't as big as these leaves, but I packed them around them. I wrapped them with Glad wrap, I took them right down from his knees, right down to his toes.
The whole leaf?
The whole leaf.
Okay.
The whole leaf. And I had to use probably at least a cabbage on each leg, because you pack it up, you pack it around. So what I did is I put them down there, and as I said, 2.5 days later, all that excess, let's call it juice, or maybe it's a swelling, that had come out. And he was so happy. And one of the Fijian ladies went back to the same house, and she called in a whole lot of them, and they came in. And this was, in Tonga, there is a lot of class consciousness, and she was in there, and there was the Prime Minister's wife, and, they was like the upper echelon in Tonga, who all came in there, and they did the juice cleanse I think they did it for 10 days. So this fella had to be taught how to, because, what caused diabetes, what caused his legs to swell. Yes, this is first aid treatment, but you've also got to educate them to stop doing what they were doing. So that is an excellent story. Now, there's another story because I knew all that, and I know how it will pull juices out. So I had another friend, and I've related this same lady to you, had late stages breast cancer. And one of her arms swelled up huge. This was the side the breast cancer on, because lymphedema, and she had this huge arm. And the other arm, she was very fragile and frail, hardly any weight on her, but this one arm was huge. And I said, well, what do you think if we try some cabbage? Yes, she said, have a go at it. And what I did is I put the cabbage on there, and we did the same thing, and it pulled it out. But it also was so powerful it started pulling out, and she had a lot of little sores on her that broke out, and she says that's the cancer coming out through the skin. So the lesson for me in that particular experience, and you have to learn as you do these things, is there comes to a stage where you really can't help people with that, because it was it was working, but she didn't want all these sores over her body, and that's what it was doing. So you need to realize and watch your reaction. If it's going to pull so much out, you just really need to minimize it and just leave it go and let that get air and sunshine. That sometimes you need to do that. And so I just learned with that one that I couldn't just continually just do back on poultices with her, because as I said, she just got these little weepy sores all over her arm. And she didn't want that. You don't need that with somebody with cancer. Now, how do you do it? I normally, when I go around and do my programs, I always have a rolling pin. I bring a rolling pin, and I thought, well, look, I'm not going to come have a rolling pin. Surely they'll have a rolling pin here. Do you think I cannot find a rolling pin in the kitchen ever? Hey?
I wish I'd known. I would have brought
I never thought to ask somebody to bring a rolling pin. So
you can use that jar.
So what I'm going to use is, this is my mother before, years and years ago, before she could afford a rolling pin, she'd use jars. She would use bottles. So I thought, well, I'll just use a bottle. This has got a flat enough side. And I thought, well, we'll try it. Now what you've got to do is you've got to cut out that centre stalk. That's too hard. You don't need that in there. You just throw that away. Now that's the leaf. Now what you have to do is you put it on a breadboard and you roll it like this. Now it's not rolling as good as it should because I can't put too much pressure on it, but you understand what I'm doing, don't you? What you have to do is bruise the leaf, and it becomes quite wet. And it becomes quite pliable and floppy. Now that's what you do with all of them. And then it's a little bit wet, but it's not as wet as it needs to be. But if you do it with a rolling pin, you can really push it hard. And you can then you put it around your arm or wherever you are. And then what I would do over the top of that, I would put Glad wrap or something to keep it in place. I like using, or we call it, your plastic wrap. Now, somebody here brought in the other day some press and seal wrap. Thank you. This one has a sticky on it, although it wouldn't work for this, but for some of the other poultices, I believe you can get this here in America. Is that right? Press and seal. I've never seen that before. That's not in Australia. So that's getting back to this. You could use that over an arthritis knee. You could use it over your sinus area. Now, there is another way to do it, which I've also done it this way, is you just feed all these leaves into a food processor and make mush. Okay? And do you know something? And then you spread that out on a what do you call it? On a wipe. What do you call these things in America? We call them Chuck's wipes.
Oh, those are dishcloths.
Just dishcloths. Well, that's what I do, and you just spread it out there, and you can make a poultice with it. So you put it anywhere, and so if you didn't want to do it as leaves like that, you could just do it with the food processor. And sometimes it's great because if you want to put it in a food processor, you can actually add other things to it. Like sometimes you can put in flaxseed, also is very good as a drawing. You could put in clay. One of my friends, she put in Epsom salts. You know, there's loads of things. You could, really, the sky's the limit, I guess. Anything that you could poultice, you can just add together with that in the poultice, and you can make up a wonderful healing drawing poultice. And this will pull out, as I said, it will pull out juices.
What about this arthritis spot I have?
Look, if you have an arthritis spot or something on your body, I would probably work at it with castor oil first, and then you could do something like this. But can I tell you something? And I said this one night, and I'm not sure if everyone was here, but if you've had a spot or a lump on your body, and if you've had it for years, you have to persist, because as often they say, this is what I'm told, as long as it's taken that lump to appear, it'll be as long as it takes to go away. So if you've had a lump for 10 years, it's going to, you're going to have to be really working hard on it. But can I tell you something? There is one of my family, she started to take borax, and she's had on her legs and on her knees and on her toes, she's had lumps. They're quite marked. They were quite big lumps. And she's actually taking borax, she's taking magnesium, and she's taking iodine. And do you believe, she says, look, my lumps are getting smaller. They are just going away. So what's happened is she's had deposits on the outside in her tissues, and they're going away. And she is so thrilled.
What if you have a meniscus tear or a surgery? What's good for that?
For a surgery or tear, I would use... Look, sometimes you just got to play it by ear, and you just think, well, do I use a cabbage, or do I use a potato, or do I use slippery elm? I would think for that is the one I'm going to show you in a minute, is a comfrey one. I really would go for comfrey, because comfrey actually regenerates tissues and regenerates tendons, and you can get it. So what you do, if you are sick or something, or if you've got some sort of thing, what you do is you take internally, and then what you juice, you can put all that on as poultice. But by the way, you do need juice. You do need the wetness in poultice. I wouldn't really just use the dry old pulp from my juice and put it on. But it's the same principle. If you're putting it in your mouth, you can also put all your carrots on your skin as well for healing. Or you could put potato, or you could put all your vegetables on your skin. So it can be used both ways. So that is for, this is the one here, that's for cabbage. Now, by the way, I also saw in a book a whole, and I think I mentioned it to you, that I believe you can use kale. I believe you could, that's a story I want to tell you. I went over, one other time I went to Tonga, I went over to another island off the mainland of Tonga, which is Nuku'alofa, or that's a city, but I went over to another island called Vava'u. And I was over there, and as I landed there, there's a population of 15,000 on Vava'u. And when I landed there, a lady picked me up from the airport and took me, and in this room there were 27 women sitting around, all wanting to learn natural remedies. I have never been so blown away with such an attendance. They were all ready there. I just got off the plane, and I said to the lady, I said, well, I haven't been to the market. I haven't got any potatoes. I said, what about cabbage? She said, oh, I haven't got any cabbage. She said, but I've got lettuce. We're growing lettuce in the garden. And she was growing these huge, they had greenhouses where they're growing these lettuces for market. And they were huge, the big green leaves on the outside. So I went back and I said to the people, I said, okay, now I'm going to show you something. And I want you to just realise that I'm going to tell you about a cabbage poultice. This here is a lettuce leaf, but you all know the difference between a lettuce leaf and a cabbage, but I'll show you the principle using the lettuce leaf. So I did the rolling out and I put it over this. This lady, I said, who's got a sore, anything sore that they want me to help them with? And so this woman, she came up and she says, I've got this sore knee. And anyhow, so I wrapped it around and I put it around her knee. She went home, she came back, I was doing 2.5 days of classes there. She came back the next day and she says, do you know what? She says, look, she says, it's the first time in 9 years I've been able to turn in bed without pain. And you know what? It was a lettuce poultice. I'd never heard of a lettuce poultice being used. But I just believe that God blesses these things. You remember these things? And I spoke to you over the weeks that we pray about them, and it's God's the healer. So what we have to do is understand. I believe He can heal so many things, and I know in the islands they use, they don't have as many potatoes, they use a lot more sweet potatoes. And I don't know about the cassava and all those things, I'm unsure, but you know something, I believe that you could use it. And it's just something in it that does the work. God has placed it in all these vegetables. The basic principle is if it's edible, you can use it as a poultice. If it's poisonous, you can't. That's the basic principle. I wouldn't use some of these other poisonous things on my thing. So just remember, you could use lettuce in a pinch. But those lettuces were very, very rich and green and large and lush. They weren't just like an iceberg lettuce that you'd go into the supermarket. Oh yeah, they were pure organic, yeah. So that's why they had power in it. And so some people have said, just realise that you get more of a better result when you're going to do this in it, using that. Now I wanted to share with you about comfrey. Now I drew your attention to the comfrey plant that was shown when we were going through the program. And someone has kindly brought me in some comfrey. And this is a comfrey leaf. If you're unsure what it looks like, you can come up later and you can touch it. This is quite a small one because I believe you've just come out of winter and it will only just be starting to shoot because it dies off in the summer. I said that again wrong. It dies off in the winter. It grows in the summer. Now that's the comfrey root. And actually I noticed some comfrey root in one of the shops. I think it was the market. There was comfrey root there. Now that will shoot out. That's a plant. It'll actually shoot. Whoever brought it in can take it back and plant it. This is an ideal way. You can go. I don't know if the nursery. Did you say that the nursery doesn't have them? The nursery doesn't have them. You're going to have to find somebody who's got comfrey in their garden. And as I said, I have got so much because I know it's so valuable. And I've got like probably from here up there, this wide, just a big patch of it along like that. And it's luscious, just really lush. Okay, so what do you use comfrey for? Well, I'll share you with some of the things you use comfrey for. It heals, cleanses, nourishes flesh. It promotes new skin growth. You use it inwardly on bruises, gangrenous, sores, ulcers, burns, open wounds, arthritis, gout, broken bones, tendons, ligaments, swollen neck glands, crushing injuries. You make a comfrey paste. It's good for carpal tunnel. It's good for burns. It's good for lung cancer. As a matter of fact, it is excellent for lung cancer. It is the poultice of choice for lung cancer. So if you've got lung cancer, you need to have a big lot of comfrey leaves or the comfrey root. And you can actually infuse it with coconut oil and lemon juice, and you can do it, and you can make it up, and you can actually put it on the outside as a paste. You can put it on poultice or an ointment. Or actually, I make a lot of comfrey oil where I dry off my comfrey leaves. I soak them in pure virgin olive oil. Then I drain that off. And that is what I use, and I add my beeswax and make my own comfrey ointment out of that.
Breast cancer?
Yes, you would. Somebody said for breast cancers, yes, you. But there's one thing I want you to notice. With comfrey, comfrey will bring a healing. It will actually seal. If some injury has to be drawn out, you don't want it to be plugged up and sealed off. If there is pus or anything that needs to be healed and come out. So you don't, that's what you've got to watch for, because sometimes you don't want it healed. If you remember that first night I was telling you about that lady with a leg ulcer who we used potato on to heal it, did not use comfrey on it until right at the end when it was almost finished to be ready to be sealed over and healed, because you have to be able to be drained. Any crushing injuries, carpal tunnel, it restores tissue along with slippery elm, and it must be kept wet. I had a story. There was a story of somebody who came to my home, and she told me this story, and she said that she knows all this. She was the one who actually told me, and she inspired me to learn all about herbs, because I could not believe a story. She said her husband cut off the tip of his finger with a power saw. She knew that you had comfrey, honey, equal parts comfrey, honey, and wheat germ oil. She packed it on there, and they had to keep it wet. It never is to dry out, kept it wet, and his fingertip regrew. And she said the very last bit of it didn't regrow because she was the one who was always doing the dressing, and her husband couldn't be bothered to do it. She went to hospital to have an operation. And she was getting her teeth done or something, and she said that he couldn't be bothered putting it, and he let it dry out. And he let it dry out, and it stopped growing. So the tip of it didn't grow quite fully, but the rest of it. My mouth dropped open when I heard this. And a teenage son who was 19 was there. I said, "Do you remember this?" And he says, "Yeah." I just needed reassurance from someone else to tell me that this is what happened. So, and I believe it, and since then I have heard so many other cases like that. Comfrey can regrow tissue. And also slippery elm does too. Slippery elm will rebuild tissues. One story I had with slippery elm powder, one lady, she had she'd been to the doctor, she had an operation, and she got golden staph in it. And it was just above her waist, under her breast, in this part here. And she said it was about that large. And she said she got golden staph. So she went back to the doctor. He scraped it out. And she said that then it came back again. She got golden staph twice. And she rang me up. She said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Make a paste of slippery elm powder and put that in there." And probably 3 weeks later, she said it's healed over completely. She was really happy. So, getting back to comfrey. We're back on comfrey here. So, comfrey you can put on, similar, you need to bruise the leaves. Now, with this, I would throw them all in the food processor, or you could do the rolling pin, however you wanted to do it. I think you get a better response in the food processor. But it becomes sort of mucilaginous. It's sort of slimy. But then you put it on. You put it on any injury. Now, you put it on where you've got a broken bone, where you've got any, like a tendon torn, it will heal deeply. It really heals tendons, it heals bones. And I'll tell you a story about Katie. Katie was a woman, she was in her 50s and she was working, and she decided that she wanted to learn, because she was working up on a health retreat, and she wanted to go over the other side of the health centre, she was right up in the top part, and she thought, oh look, it's a long time to walk, I think I'll learn to ride a motorbike. Well, they showed her how to ride a motorbike, but they forgot to tell her how to stop it. So she was there, and she fell off, and the motorbike fell on top of her leg. Okay, the drama, ambulance, hospital, her leg was swollen. She was in hospital for 2 weeks. She'd had a smashed kneecap, and the doctor had her on the operating table ready, because what they're doing, they were going to take part of her hip bone, they were going to refashion it and make a new kneecap and sew it in place on her knee. Okay, she was on the operating table, and the doctor looked at it and said, I'm not operating on this is too swollen. So she was sent back to her room, and her husband said, that's it, we're out of here. Because they worked for, now some of you may have heard me speak about Barbara O'Neill. Barbara O'Neill has a health clinic in Australia. She's a good friend of mine, and she comes over here and lectures in America a lot of times. And so she's been on AD and a lot of the programs there. She's a very, very lovely lady. She's a good friend of mine. And she was the one, and she said, no, we're going to treat you, Katie. And I was down there, and I was doing, I was going down there often to the health clinic where she was. Katie was on the couch. And so they took her home to Barbara's house. They sat her on the couch, and she sat up there for quite a while, for weeks on end. And she had a leg just resting out on the couch. What they did is they went out, and it was winter time, so they did not have the leaves in the garden, so they dug it up. They dug up the comfrey root, and they made that, and they put it in a food processor, and they made up this big slimy jelly mess. They put it in here, put it in a chucks, whatever, we call them chucks. They put them in there, and they spread it over her knees. Did you know that she said she actually could feel the bone, because remember the kneecap was shattered, and it was all pieces. They had a before and after X-ray, but she said she actually felt the bones in her knees moving, in her knee moving. And I said, tell me really, what did it feel like? And she sat there and she says, she says, I suppose it felt a little bit like when you have a baby and it moves inside of you and you've got no control about it. She said, it just moved. And so I said, and I thought to myself, yeah. And then we went down there once, and we saw her 5 weeks later, after she'd had this accident. She was walking around gingerly on a walking frame. Look, 2 months later, she was fine. 3 months later, she was at work, and she said the worst part of that, the kneecap just came back perfectly. All the pieces in the kneecap joined up together. But she said the hardest part, the thing that took longest to heal was where she fell, and she had a very deep muscle tear in her back of the calf. She said that hurt her more than the actual knee. But when I heard this, I thought to myself, what an incredible experience she had with comfrey, because it does work. It really does. And they keep saying that it's knit bone. They call it knit bone because it sends crushing injuries back where they were. So, as I said, with this one, I would do the same. I just said this to you. I would throw those leaves in the vitamizer and I'd make a poultice, or the root. Now, generally, the root is more powerful than the leaves. You can even use the root, and I know there's some in the shop down there. I saw it only yesterday. They had comfrey root, and you can just have it. I generally, personally, don't trade the market down there in the corner, the Loma Linda market, in their herbs section. So, but I'm sure you can get it most places. But what I generally don't do, I do more of the comfrey poultices out of the root. I drink the leaf more tea. Now that's just me. There's no rule that says you have to do it my way, but I tend to have that as a leaf for edible and that more as poultices, because that gets very, very slimy, incredibly slimy, and it's sort of not that good. I mean, I say to you, eat it, but if you have to, you could. Yes? Just hold on. We need a microphone. Have we got a microphone? Just come up here and speak up at the microphone, please.
My friend's mother fell down and broke her kneecap also, but she took her to emergency just for the sake of having x-ray and see what happened. And the surgeon saw it and he said, I have to do surgery right now. And she said, oh no, I am going to take over from now on. And she took her home, and she was putting comfrey poultice around the clock, and after 3 months it was perfectly healed.
Yeah. It does work. I know it does work. As I said, I've seen this work, and it really is very reassuring when you see something happening with your own eyes, when you're working with natural remedies. So you know how you can be so confident with it working. Because what did they used to use years ago? When before there were such things as doctors and, like people have been breaking bones all throughout history. Okay, now when I'm mixing it, the question is when I'm mixing it, was using any more water? Yes and no. I will look at it. I may need water. If I'm doing it, I will just add a little bit at a time. And if I put too much in, I would just put maybe a bit of clay or something that will bind it and will take it up. You can also even use flour in your poultices, and it won't hurt them. That's fine. Except, don't do what I did. And I said to a fella, he's had really sore back. And I said, look, do a cayenne poultice on your back. And I said, look, we'll do it with flour. Except I use tapioca flour. Now, do you know what happens when you use tapioca flour and water? It sets like a plaster cast. I'd never used tapioca flour before because that was all was there. And I thought, I'll use it. But it does. It's set like a plaster cast. So don't use tapioca flour. You just want something that's a little bit more pliable.
You can grind up oatmeal too.
Yes, you're right there. You can grind. When we were in Tonga one time, and all the ladies, the night before we left, there's a whole lot of the Fijian ladies gave a whole lot of them facials. And they gave them with oatmeal and charcoal facial. You see, I've got a photo of all these ladies lined up with these black faces. And they look. Yes, you can mix it with your poultice to gel it together. Yeah, you can do it with any poultice, and there's no rule. Just become a little bit more adventurous, if that's a word, experimentative. Do things like that, because you'll get your own stories of what. It's like what happens here is somebody gives me a story and they say, oh, look, such and such happened. Oh, we need to get these stories from other people, because that's what gives you your experience, and you get confident in able to doing these things. So, okay. Any other questions? Yes, just hold on.
You mentioned the Loma Linda market. You can get the comfrey. Are you referring to the herb or are you referring to the plant?
The root.
The root.
I saw them up the root. The root there.
Inside the store or outside the store?
Inside the store.
Oh, okay.
No, it's dried.
Okay.
Yeah, the package. They're packaged to yeah. Just hold on. We're going to pass the microphone around. No, you couldn't plant it. It's dried out. I don't think there would be life in it yet. But what you do with that sort of thing, that is enough to shoot it out. And even if you had half of that, it'd shoot out, you know. How often? It's the same with everything. You just look at it, you know. You get a feel of it. Usually probably every 4 hours. Yes.
I had a question about the comfrey poultices for repairing bones. What if for repairing bones?
Yes.
Surgery.
Yes,
and on their back, already had surgery on their back. Can you still use it?
Yes, you can. Now, there's one thing you've got to be a little bit more cautious about. There's only one thing you have to be cautious about, is if somebody has had a screw or something like that put in, because it actually can pull out some of these screws. It is so powerful. So you need to be careful with that. I would possibly not do it as much. Maybe you're going to get a little bit of response, but I wouldn't do it long term if they have a screw in there. Because I've heard of people, it will actually pull your screw out.
What about the discs? Like if they're missing Now
that would be all right. If there was a disc missing, you could do it. A friend of mine, she had a prolapse disc, and she did the comfrey poultice over that area, and it goes into your body, and it actually gives your body the building materials to replenish and grow. Any more questions?
Questions about comfrey, or
just
ask a different?
Yeah, you can ask a different question. Wait till this one first.
My husband's mother went from Pennsylvania to Australia to Gary Martin's because after cataract surgery her eyes were actually worse because of swelling. Her vision was worse. And she was there for about a month, and they used organic cabbage poultices and cayenne eye washes, and her vision was so much improved. She came back and she was so happy. We met her at the airport in LA, and her eyes were better than they had been in many, many years. She could even see to drive again.
With
organic cabbage poultices.
Organic cabbage poultice
at Living
and
Valley
cayenne
Springs.
Wash.
Yeah.
Cayenne wash. Thank you. Just hold on. Just wait for the microphone, please.
For a hip, if a person has osteoporosis on the hip, and is ready for surgery, do you think it may be helpful to have a comfrey compress?
Look, I believe all of those things would be helpful, but you must realize that when you're doing and you've got something that is critical, sometimes you've got to go the medical way. It's not like you were never going to go the medical way, because it's like somebody asked me about cataracts before. Some of these things, if you're going to work out with cataracts, they're going to take a long time to heal. You're going to have a long time. Now, you may not have that 6 months or year up your sleeve. You might need that operation now. So sometimes you have to just weigh up the alternatives and find out which one's your best option. But I keep saying we need to be educated. You see, if we start early enough, we don't get ourselves into such a mess down the track. So what you've got to do is start doing all these things that you're hearing now, so you don't get into a mess down the track and your health's not such a crisis, and you've got the time to rebuild your health up. But if you wait till you're faced up with, like it's either today or tomorrow, next week it's surgery, that is just like too hard a decision for me to say, oh no, don't go for the surgery. I wouldn't advise anybody. You've got to make up the call yourself. And to me personally, I think sometimes you have to go the way of the surgeon because you haven't got that time up your sleeve. I've got another question here.
Where would you find radium weed?
Radium weed grows in our garden everywhere. If you come to Australia, you're welcome to come to our place.
Where would you find it here?
I have no idea where you'd find it. Has anybody heard it here? It's called petty spurge.
That's the stuff you don't make pulp.
Yeah, you don't make the pulp.
That belongs to the poinsettia family, probably.
Yeah.
So it's called petty spurge?
Petty spurge, yeah.
Okay.
That's another name.
Thank you.
But, I think you can use any of your plants that have sap. The sap is what burns your
We have spurge here.
Yeah, so that's what you need to go for when you're burning off things. Now, you had a question?
Yeah, when I sit in my pickup, even when I use a liquid foam type pad, my tailbone gets really, really inflamed, and that hurts a lot. And I wondered what kind of poultice can you use on that, or what would you use with that?
I think it's probably, an easier thing to do is I would just, of a night time, I would rub comfrey oil into it or comfrey ointment into it and just get it healing that way, because it's not easy to wear on your tailbone, to wear a poultice around,
Yeah, really.
Okay, it's not the most ideal position because it's going to fall down, okay? How are you going to keep it in place? You'd have to be careful.
It's just really tender on the end.
Yeah. Okay, so I would put what we've done in the past, and there's a especially good way, is if you make your oil. Remember I said making comfort. If you're going to make an ointment and oil, you will need dry herbs. Soak your dry herbs, because if you soak it in wet herbs, like if I just had, and I did this when I first did it, I just chopped my leaves up and I just put oil over that. But that goes rotten. It really goes off. It does not last long because there's too much moisture in that. Now the moisture and the oil mix and it goes rancid. But if you have a dry herb, so I dry all my leaves off, then I mix them and I add the oil on top of that, strain that off after I've soaked it for maybe 3 to 6 weeks. Sometimes I just leave them in there until I'm ready to do it. So sometimes it's been soaking since last season. And I'll come back and I'll pour it off and I'll make that and I will just use it and use beeswax, melts beeswax. And I've got even the little basic recipe for how to do it in my book. So you need to get your beeswax and then you can make your oil, your comfrey ointment, and that's what I would do. And I would rub comfrey ointment over that area. My sister broke a toe. And because the doctor didn't want to put it in plaster or anything like that, it was quite painful. So she just rubbed comfrey ointment over her toe, and she said just took the pain away like that. So often I've had people who were using comfrey ointment, they had marvellous responses with it.
So all these herbs that are in your lovely garden, if we can't find them, can we just go to the health food store and buy, like, you can get herb teas or...
Yes. That's my suggestion.
Is that going to be...
Yes. It's going to be better if you get them fresh out of your garden.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to build up your education. You'll go to a friend's place and they'll say, is that real dandelion? Oh, can I grab a plant? And you'll take it back home and you'll nurture it like a plant. And you will get, is that plantain? I'll bring that home. And you'll get a little garden. And that's what you need to nurture. And you can get your own little herb garden going. Now, if you have not got the room or the ability to do that, your next best is to go into the health food shop, buy teas, and do it that way. But my belief is definitely best getting the fresh herb.
So... Some of these you can buy the herbs in a tea, and some of them you can buy in a tincture.
Yes.
So, do you recommend one
Look,
over the
yes
other?
And no.
Just some of them, not all of them, but some of them, they do come in a tincture. So if you have a choice of getting an herb tea or that herb in a tincture, do you have a preference over?
Look, I believe your tinctures are good, but I'm very careful. I avoid tinctures made with alcohol.
Alcohol, yes.
So you need to make them with glycerine, and I tend to go this way. I used to make them, and I just don't anymore. I can't be bothered making them. To me, it's just as easy just having them fresh.
Yeah, but
that's the way I'm going.
But if you have to buy them in the store.
Yes, you're right, yeah. Or, now the other thing is too, some of them you can use essential oils. Essential oils are incredibly healthy to use those too. And some of them are very expensive.
Home Depot has comfrey plants in their herb section. They have a whole bunch of different stuff. And you can get seeds for different herbs from Seed Savers Exchange from Decorah, Iowa. Just go Google has everything. Just check Google and find out where but Home Depot, I've seen comfrey plants. And they're little 4-inch pots, and they're about $4.
And what I'd suggest is get yourself a few, because you know something, that's not going to go very far. Okay, I know you have to start small, but really, you know what, you need 20 times that amount of root to get yourself a good supply of herbs. Okay, you're not. That's only going to just. Yes, it'll take a couple of years to multiply up, but if you want it fast, you need to get yourself as much as you can get.
Seeds are available. Just go on Google.
Yes.
Seeds from herb companies.
Yes, you're right there. Yes. Yes.
I just going to mention 2 remedies that God gave me. I haven't found it written anywhere. One is aloe vera gel for pink eye, or what is called conjunctivitis.
Yeah.
And the other one is onions for burnings. That's because I found out that after praying that I didn't have anything else to use, and it worked.
Another one too, which I'll talk to you about, is the silks off corn. You know, sweet corn.
Oh, okay.
And you just pour the silks off, and you save them, and you dry them out, and you make a cup of tea out of that, and it's excellent for bladder infections. Anyone has a bladder infection? Just like that. Corn silk tea.
Cranberry juice too, right?
Pardon? Cranberry juice is good too, but sometimes you haven't got cranberry juice and you've got corn silk, and sometimes you've got one and you haven't got the other. But you need to know these things. Yeah. Well, yes. Okay, the cranberry juice you were saying has corn syrup in it here, so you need to be careful.
Oh, no sugar.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's.
Do you have any experience using what's called willow bush? It's not willow, but it's the same family that it's used for prostate.
No.
Gary Martin talked about it a lot.
Willow bush.
Yeah, slow bush willow.
Okay, I don't know about it.
I'll find it and email it to you.
Okay. Well, that's it. That's the last of our health programs here.
And before we leave, we're going to take an offering in behalf of the expenses of bringing the Sehms here. And there are a couple of deacons coming forward. Johnny, would you take this side?